We're going to start with the Office of Human Rights. I'd like to make a formal announcement. We're going to go as far as we can until 5:30. I know people likely have family commitments and plans, and we do have two backup sessions on Friday if we don't get through today. So apologies to everyone. Thank you for your patience. And we will start with the Office of Human Rights. I'll just start on a personal note. We see that Director Stowe is not here. I just want to continue to send him the warmest of possible wishes. And I always look forward to Director Stowe coming before us because he always provides such tremendous knowledge, and I just look forward to him coming before us. So sending him positive vibes wherever he is. Thank you. So, why don't we begin with our, hold on, let me pull up the information. Sorry. Ms. Singleton, why don't you get us started?
Okay, good afternoon. I'm here with Alicia Singh from OMB to present the Office of Human Rights budget for FY25. The total recommended budget for FY25, the operating budget for the office is $2,117,953, which is an increase of $154,158, or a 7.85% change from the FY24 approved budget of $1,963,795. Personnel costs comprise 82.47% of the budget for 11 full-time positions and no part-time positions, and a total of 11.6 FTEs. And then the operating expenses account for the remaining 17.53% of the FY25 budget. The budget does not include any service impacts. The recommended budget includes changes with no service impacts, and the typical ones that you'll see on page 2 under 1B. And then I can share with you the operating budget equity tool, but I can't tell you more about it. So the operating budget equity tool rating was a 7 out of 11, which translates to the office having demonstrated a commitment. The department level budget demonstrates a commitment to advancing racial equity and social justice in Montgomery County. I do know that we asked the department, Director Stowe, to talk directly with Tiffany Ward, the director of the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. I know they had that conversation, and so I know that there were some discussions about why 7 as opposed to 11 and what can be done about that, but I don't have that information for you.
All right, thank you very much for that update, Ms. Singleton. This office obviously is critically important. It still is not yet at the staffing levels it was prior to the recession, which was now almost 12 years ago. So, but the workload has increased. This and the previous council have been very aggressive in ensuring that there is equity in our community, and it often falls on the shoulders of this important office to ensure that that's carried out with fidelity. So it's a modest increase to the overall operating budget. Are there any questions from colleagues? No? Seeing no questions, I think without objection, we will concur with the county executive's recommendation and hopefully be able to do better next year.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the follow-up to the ongoing conversations we've been having with our colleagues in the Department of Health and Human Services. I'd like to invite forward Dr. Bridgers, Mr. Hodge, and anybody else from the team that needs to be present. Thank you. All right. Ms. Clemens Johnson, are we turning this over to you or Ms. Yao? Great.
I'm the chosen one.
Awesome. Lucky you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Chair and council members. So referencing our packet, this is a follow-up work session to discuss certain items that were discussed in the previous HHS work sessions. We will start out, so within the packet, we will note what items need a recommendation or vote and which ones are informational and anything else the department could provide any responses to. So our first item is the infrastructure positions. This isn't related to any service area, but crosses the service areas. This was a recommendation of $980,000, $902, and 11 FTEs to support DHHS administrative infrastructure. It will support 11 positions that are detailed in your packet. And at the time when we met, the council staff did not have all of the information to make a recommendation. After that, we met and the HHS provided the additional information, providing detail on the 11 positions, and they are listed in your packet along with their program title and description and cost. So from what we could see, from the information that we gathered, 6 of the positions are directly related with associated with increased revenue, and the other 5 positions are needed infrastructurally, but not directly associated with revenue. And the department may say differ, but we can let them detail that. So in your packet, the department talks about how the infrastructure shortcomings and how they are trying to meet these needs through these increased revenues. So as I mentioned, the 6 positions are directly associated with it. So council staff recommendation is that we approve that the committee approved the 6 positions. This would be a total of $528,129. And then these positions would be listed on the new and enhanced programs list. For the positions that are not revenue backed, we suggest that those be listed as individual positions. So taken out of the grouping and listed, if you see in your chart here, we have broken those out. So there are 5 positions, but for 2 of them, the program manager in PACS and the administrative specialist in Children, Youth, and Family Services, we are recommending that the committee consider those as a new and improved positions to add to the department. The program manager for PACS will be administering the intensive team model of care. This model pulls together teams across the service areas to work to find solutions to address complicated case management issues, and it is intensive work. So we are recommending that position and also an administrative specialist position in Children, Youth, and Family Services. Our recommendation is that the 3 non-revenue backed positions be identified as potential reductions. So we included an updated chart with all of our recommendations, and if there's further questions, Vivian and I can answer, or the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bridgers. At a high level, thoughts? I know that I'll tee up here. So we've had and continue to hear from vendors, providers, constituents and you have shared with us the immense caseloads, the challenges with contracting and the volume of contracts. So will these positions help or address some or all of those issues, or could you provide some further context?
Sure, thank you, and again, good afternoon, HHS Chair Albornoz. Absolutely, yes, these positions will enhance the work that we do. One of the things I want to share with council, this time last year, we talked about the 368 vacancies we have. To date, Mr. Hodge advised me that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will be under 200 vacancies. So that speaks to the work that we've done over a year. But there are also program enhancements. Dr. Nemhard just left, but all the great work that she's doing in our program analysis and customer evaluation section, she needs help. She needs help to do the data analytics. Councilmember Sales as the lead for racial disparities. This is where we get the data from. These are the positions that we need to increase the work that we do. And 11 of the positions go to support the infrastructure. Mr. Hodge and our fiscal team, Mr. Rundell, looked at those revenue generating positions. staff that we need to do the fiscal and handle our fiduciary responsibilities, and we need staff to continue that work. So at the highest level, these positions are necessary for us to not only do work, generate revenue, but also do the data analysis that we need to inform not only the council, the executive staff, but our community and partners as well. And data sharing is always a challenge for us, looking at the interoperability of the many sources that we pull data from, and we know that there's a lag in getting data. This is the resources, the human resources that we need to bring those capabilities closer to home, if you will.
Thank you. Mr. Hodge?
Thank you. I'm Mark Hodge, the Chief Operating Officer for HHS. So these positions, while 6 of them will directly impact our revenues and the ones that council staff recommend, the total number of revenues that we're going to be getting, that we anticipate getting in FY25 is far more than the cost of these 11 positions. So I understand the theme this year is fiscal restraint and responsibility. We believe that when we were doing our budget numbers for the FY25 submission, we were looking at what's most important. For us, it was not growing programs this year. We've done that for 20 years. What was important to us this year was growing our infrastructure and right-sizing the department. We are nowhere near that with 11 positions, but it's a good start for us. To only do 6 of those, maybe 8 that were recommended, gets us a little bit closer. But the 3 that are not recommended by council staff, one is for the holiday giving program. We have been piecing that together for years. We are unable to keep doing that in the way we've been doing it. To have a full-time position allows us to work more closely with the nonprofits to increase the number of kids and families that we can serve, because we will be able to talk with nonprofits. We will be able to recruit more nonprofits to participate in that. Now we kind of try to piece things together in the best way we can, and we always have a large number of families that don't get served during holiday giving because we just don't have enough nonprofits and spots to be able to do that. That's one of the positions. The other is a special, an additional fiscal person for SEF. We keep having to come back to you with supplemental funding for SEF. The fiscal person that's doing that is so overwhelmed with everything that's happening in that space. He needs help, and this is our way of being able to provide that. I'm not saying that we won't come back to you for more money, because the housing problem is much bigger than one fiscal person, but we will be able to address a lot of those needs in a much better way than we have been. And so I'm hoping.
What's the third position, Mr. Hodge?
Yes, and I can't off the top of my head remember what that was.
Program manager.
What is it?
The program manager went in the chief's office.
Oh, right. So, and that's the same. That third position is also equally important. They will be providing assistance to many of the things that we're asking children, youth, and families to add to their plates on a daily basis. And so, like I said, we thought about these things when we asked for them. We could have asked for 40 positions.
Sure.
That would have right-sized us.
Yeah.
But we asked for 11 because these were the most important. To not give us these 11 this year doesn't mean we won't try to come back next year with 11 more. But it's really important for us to right-size the infrastructure at HHS. We've talked about the administrative struggles. I know that you've asked to come back after budget season to talk about some of those challenges that we're having, and I'm very happy to do so. But this is the right direction, and I'm hoping that you can speak as passionately as I have for these positions when you come before full council to do this. This is fiscal restraint. This is putting us in a place where we are going to make sure that we are making HHS more efficient because we have the infrastructure to do so.
Jason Randell, Budget Manager HHS. I just add to echo everything said, and that these positions are all supported by revenue. So it's at zero cost to the county to provide these positions because the revenue that is anticipated will offset them. I know it could be easy to say, well, we'll take the revenue generating ones and still assume all the revenue. But I would say that even those that are not generating revenue, they contribute to our revenue picture. One of the big challenges we have is people having to do multiple different things who might be supposed to do billing revenue, do focusing on revenue stuff, but they're having to do all the other administrative activities as well. And so while these positions might be categorized as non-directly revenue generating, I wouldn't say that we should just assume the full amount of revenue we're projecting without getting all of the positions that we've requested in our budget request.
Thank you. I have a couple comments and questions, but I'm going to yield to colleagues first. Councilmember Sales.
Okay, no, I just had a quick question and a comment. Just thank you for working towards addressing some of the vacancies that we've seen in HHS. With regards to the position you mentioned for the holiday giving program, what would they be doing throughout the year? Holiday giving is just for the end of the year, so what sort of tasks do you envision for this role?
So there's a lot of education that happens throughout the year for nonprofits. Like I said, we've been piecing it together with other positions who have other jobs, and it does ramp up as we get closer to the end of the year. But our ability to recruit other nonprofits to participate in that space, our ability to provide training to help them understand what the needs are, that they can do Thanksgiving turkeys and they can do Christmas hams and turkeys as well as gifts. And so the larger number of nonprofits we can recruit to help in this, the more families we can serve. If we don't have a position to be able to do this, we'll keep trying to piece it together, and we won't get all the nonprofits out there that are available to us. We've tried to do marketing, we've tried to do other things, but we haven't had the opportunity to be able to do the comprehensive training and marketing in that program that we wanted to. So that would help the year-round position, and it's not a high-level position. It is just a program specialist.
It's a coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does coordinate that for the rest of the year. Yep.
No, I certainly
And
understand.
data, and it will do the data.
Because I'm going to ask about data.
We can't provide as much data now without it.
Yes, how many more families will be able to serve, and how many more nonprofits will be able to accumulate into our network for these particular programs, because I do see the return from what we're able to piece together now. I know it makes a significant impact for our families, and so looking forward to hearing updates about that. And then I'm just glad that we're moving away from contract roles, and if we can prioritize any new positions with what we are currently paying in contractors for next fiscal year, I would love to see more about that and any data you have, so we can bring that to the full council and in anticipation of next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sales. I'm just going to jump in really quick. Those are good questions. Candidly, the latter two positions are more consistent with what we've heard in the past from staff and various division chiefs. This is the first time I've heard about the holiday giving issue. I'm familiar with the holiday giving issue because, again, I used to run a pretty large county agency, and I know what it's like to recruit, and then it's not easy. I think it would be wise to separate those three if we are going to move with any move forward at all. So I would propose the latter two in a tranche. I'll just be candid, I'm not going to support the holiday coordinator position, as wonderful as that sounds. That also in light of, we're kind of keeping score among our colleagues in other committees, and so I've got a good sense of what is the most likely to be successful moving forward to the goal line, and I just don't think that would be one of them. But Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. And so I think we're in the same boat, and I appreciate the council staff's recommendation on approving the 6 infrastructure positions, the program manager and the administrative specialist for the child and adolescent school and community-based services. I do agree on the remaining other 3 positions. 2 should be grouped together and 1 should be kept separate for later consideration, so I'm comfortable
Okay.
with that.
Councilmember Sales, you comfortable with that as well? It's okay if you're not, of course.
Only because, I was going to ask if this position, since it is 2 events a year, would they be involved in any grant writing opportunities to offset? And because this is, these are all positions supported by revenue that HHS is generating, I didn't see the impact, but
Fair point.
any
Did you-
details about providing a grant writing component to that role for the holiday giving?
So, yeah, absolutely. It's something we could do. We would want to make sure that this person's busy. So, and I know that we're focused on these 2 end-of-year big events, but there is a lot of pre-work that has to be done. And if we can get additional grants, if we can get additional assistance from our nonprofits to do a little more, then yeah, we will. This is not somebody who's going to languish in HHS.
Yeah.
I would also state that currently the holiday giving program is essentially managed by our data people. And so what you would see is while this position wouldn't be doing data, it frees the people who are now having to do the holiday giving program to actually be able to do more robust data work throughout the year. And so it would enhance the department's data capabilities by having that position.
I appreciate that. Did you want to add anything, Dr. Bridges?
Thank you, Councilmember Sells. I just was going to echo what Mr. Rundell said. It definitely strengthens, if I could say it this late in the afternoon, strengthens our capacity building assistance. And so, yes, it's late in the evening, so I will limit my discussions, but I will weigh in when necessary.
Thank you. So no, I'd like to keep it with the staff recommendation.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right, so, well, the staff recommendation is to not do all 3.
I'm sorry. So to keep it as the HHS has recommended, to include it with the full consideration.
Okay, so we'll make a motion on that then to go with the HHS committee recommendation. All those in favor? All those opposed? Great. I'd like to move then that we do this in 2 tranches. The second 2 positions being 1 tranche, and the holiday giving position being a second. All those in favor of doing this in 2 tranches, please raise your hand. That is 2 to 1. All right.
Yes, and just for clarity, those would be the ones recommended under potential reductions.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But we're recommending that they not be reduced, that they be in 2 tranches, though.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. Next item?
Yes.
Okay. We will move to the contractual funding. This again was discussed during April 11th, and this item is not connected to any one service area. This is a FY25 one-time budget adjustment to reflect higher than expected contractor costs at $3.1 million. We did discuss this during the committee work session, and the department cited that that due to an increase in lapse and an increase in overtime, and the expectation to use additional contract and broker staff, that they would need this funding throughout the year to utilize contractors to continue providing services. So the committee agreed with the council staff recommendation to split this item into 3 tranches. But we did review the information and discussed with the department, and wanted to make the recommendation then, rather than 3 tranches, we split into 4 tranches, and that the last tranche of $1 million be split into $500,000 and $500,000, and identify the 4th tranche, $500,000, as a reduction. So that is the staff recommendation. So the 1.1, the 1 million, and 500,000 be on the new and enhanced, and that another 500,000 be identified as a potential reduction.
Dr. Bridgers or team, reactions, thoughts, impact?
I can, just to clarify on this item, as it was spoken before, HHS has a large number of vacancies currently, which we backfill with brokers for essential staff. I believe this year it's a lot more than what we've recognized here. I think it's in the $5 to $8 million range of what we're expecting to do this year of PC savings that are then being backfilled by essential staff. In the budget process, we increase the contractual staff and increase the lapse together, so they're offsetting, recognizing that we wouldn't be able to fill everyone, but we put a budget for it that projects us filling a large number more of vacancies than we did before. Doing this reduction, already I'm tasked with looking at what positions can be backfilled for next year. It's renewal season and stuff. Would make us have to make hard decisions on whether positions, essential critical positions like social workers and stuff that are currently being backfilled, we would not be able to because we wouldn't have the fiscal capacity anymore too, because this would be essentially reducing our PC budget available to serve those essential positions.
Thank you. Questions, comments, colleagues? No. I do concur with the staff recommendation on this one, acknowledging there are going to be tough decisions. It's still a net increase, and we're putting you all in a better position, acknowledging we're not going to be able to do everything. And I think it is helpful to demonstrate to colleagues, particularly in other committees, that we are being judicious, as we always are, but it candidly helps lift all boats. So, in a weird way. Ms. Clemens-Johnson, let's keep going.
Okay. The next section, please refer to your packet. There are some that are informational that I won't go over, but I will mention that the demographic data for VITA is included in the packet. And under aging and disability, there is more information in your packet about the nursing homes and the senior lunch program. But moving to adult medical daycare, there is a decision needed on Part B. So included in your packet is a list of the 13 providers who received the supplement in FY24. There is a recommendation from the CE that you all accepted of 3% increase for 64,743, and that was for these 13 providers. The other two weren't considered when the 3% was recommended. So the request from MADS is for $200,000 for 2 new centers. Those 2 new centers, the department has said they are eligible, and they believe that the $200,000 would be sufficient to split amongst them joining and receiving a supplement. But yes, and so DHS will provide additional information. We were kind of getting more information as we were talking through this today, but Dr. McGee can discuss the specifics around the 200 and the addition of the 2 new providers.
Good afternoon. Patrice McGee, Chief of Aging and Disability Services. So yes, the 2 new providers, there was a discrepancy in the original ask, and it wasn't presented at the time. It was suggested that the 2 new providers were included, but then we discovered that they are not included in the original ask. So once we do the calculations based on the capacity of those providers, then yes, that amount that they're requesting would be sufficient for these 2 new providers to come into the consortium. So these 2 new providers, one was deemed eligible in 2021, and the other was deemed eligible in 2022. So they were approved through Medicaid, so they just have to make sure that they adhere to the COMAR and make sure that they are in compliance and they are in alignment with their scope of work within the department.
For me, it's important that 2021 and 2022 is not that new. They've been operating and they're serving an important constituency. So that makes a big difference for me as opposed to if they had just opened in the last 6 months. But Councilmember Lukey, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say that those were you've answered most of my questions because I was wanting to know when did they come online, where are they in the licensure and credentialing process, knowing none of that is easy and it's complex and it's cumbersome. But I guess, and the only other question, and it sounds like the answer is they're ready now and ready for starting July 1. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And also just to be clear, so all adult medical daycare providers are not necessarily in the consortium.
Correct.
They reach out to the department,
Right.
and if they want to become part of the supplement, that's how it happens. So these 2 entities were operating and then decided to join the consortium.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Understood. Thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember Sales.
Yes, I appreciate the list that was provided to us about the current centers, but I did notice that the up-county area was lacking, and so I don't know if there's any efforts for outreach to assist with inviting or letting people in the up-county know about the opportunities that exist, and just wanted to see what's happening there.
Right, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So I know that our partners with adult medical daycare, they do go out and they recruit and they talk to other providers. From the department perspective, we do, meet with our adult medical daycare providers. We don't do any specific outreach or advertising to these entities, but we do make individuals are made aware that it does exist. If they do come into the consortium, of course, then that would make us come back to you asking for an increase, because the supplement calculations are based on the seating capacity of the center. So that's also something to consider as well.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Yes.
I support it. You guys okay? Okay, without objection?
So just to be clear, are you adding the 200,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry. Yes. Sorry, we're going back and forth. The next item is under Behavioral Health and Crisis and AHAP, talking about the opioid fentanyl education and awareness for young men of color. So the department provided this additional information about the program AAHP has and their work with Behavioral Health and Crisis. They provided additional details, and if there's any questions, the department should be able to answer.
Councilmember Sales.
Okay, I just had a question about how are we measuring success for this event? Are we providing childcare and linguistic services?
So great questions, Councilmember Sales, and we need to do that. Dr. Santiago is joining the table, but many of those services are focused on community-based needs and family strengthening. So part of that is part of the response on the way forward, but we need to evaluate the impact of the programs. We're moving from great work that we've done in the Latino community with our partners, and we're shifting to more Afrocentric community partners to support with this. So we are looking at the best response plan for that, and some of those metrics will be included in our response and planning for that.
Okay, and childcare, because some of the barriers to attending programs like this. Want to make sure childcare will be provided.
And I will present some of those questions to the African American Health Program Executive Committee and the program as part of their planning process.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next item is the Treehouse Child Advocacy Center of Montgomery County. The committee requested follow-up on this item. The committee was concerned about the capacity of the organization to provide therapeutic services because of the conversion of a therapist position into a forensic interviewer and the reported growth of the wait list for therapeutic services. The committee had questions about the wait list, Treehouse staffing, but DHHS didn't have responsive information. So the executive director, Mr. Regan, is here. And he can answer other questions, but we did get some follow-up information about the wait list. There are 36 Spanish speakers and 18 English speakers on the wait list for trauma therapy services. There is no reported wait list for other services. It might be useful to know how long it takes to get a child services when they are on the wait list.
Great. Hello, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, what I provided you, if you look on the right side of the folder, is more of the budget and data information that I think you were interested in. So, no, thank you. So, I guess we'll jump right into the wait list. So as you see, so the longest we also have along with the number of children or clients on the wait list, we have an aging report, so we know how long the latest one or the oldest one is on there. And we have a few of the clients on the wait list go off the wait list, and then for whatever reason with their non-offending caregiver not being able to bring them, they go back on, if they're unable, there's an interruption in service. In the past, we've averaged about, the maximum is about 2 months, about 8 weeks. Right now, we have our oldest is about 5 months on the wait list, but the majority of them are since January, February, the vast majority. One of the reasons for the increase in wait list that we have currently is staff capacity. So we currently have one Spanish-speaking therapist who's on maternity leave and another one who is about to go on maternity leave. And when they're about to go, that means they sort of ramp down, and we cannot reassign any long-term therapy clients to that person. And then, as indicated, one of the therapy positions, which unfortunately was a Spanish-speaking therapist, was eliminated to bring in the forensic interviewer position.
Do you have a question? Councilor Maluki?
I do, but it's about some specific items that were in the packet, not necessarily
Sure,
what you
no
said.
problem.
But that's thank you for discussing how people might be on the wait list, then they hop off because they're not able to get there, and then they're back on the wait list because it looks like the transportation budget or transportation access budget has tripled since the pre-pandemic level, and obviously that's an impediment to the kids being able to get to the services or the families being able to get to the services. So could you talk to me a little bit about that and how that increased cost for the transportation piece is impacting the overall lack of fluidity, shall we say, within your budget?
Well, yes. Well, again, the demographic of the clients and their caregivers that we service, we're not required. We've seen an increase. I think last year, I included on the one side our annual report from the previous year. Mm-hmm. We've gone from about 60% Spanish-speaking to closer to 80% right now. A good percentage of those, I don't have that figure, are undocumented as well. So we have, it's not only they may not have the transportation, but it's also a time of day issue. They can only in the evening or early morning, that type of thing. The good news is, we've gone away from sort of juggling multiple taxi services to,
right.
A HIPAA compliant Uber Health program. And the cost is, like you said, it's more than tripled.
Right.
We do have some strategic programs to try to receive outside support to get that. We're having less luck with grants, but more with sort of targeting corporate support, that type of thing. One of the things I would say is the only downside of the sort of the Uber Health is the no-show. So CACs, Child Advocacy Centers around the country, average anywhere from 20 to 25% sometimes of either cancellations or no-shows. And when the no-shows come up, you pay for that transportation whether you have it or not.
Right.
So we're trying to do as best we can to sort of be most efficient with the cost. But at this point, I'm not, that's one thing we don't want to cut if we can't, because it's really important for the children to get there. So.
Right. And I definitely appreciate, my former father-in-law was a pediatrician, and his practice was in Annapolis at the hospital at Anne Arundel Medical Center, and the population he served largely had to rely on public transportation, but also had such a high no-show rate that eventually the practice shut down that location, which then left all those people without the spot that they could get to when they could get to, which is not what you want to have happen, especially not with a population as vulnerable as the children and families we're talking about here. In terms of the liquidity within your back and forth of your funds to cover things, questions about timing of payments from the county. And this is a bigger, broader issue, but you're the one in front of me right now. So,
absolutely.
Understanding that the drawdown requires documentation and things that you have to put in, but it's my understanding that the language in our statute requires 30-day payment terms, and Is that what's happening, not happening? What's the average that you're experiencing in getting the reimbursements back presently?
Yes, no. I think our relationship with our contract administrator is fantastic, and she's been very supportive. So when we submit the invoices, there is a very quick turnaround on those.
Okay.
When for us, it's more of a how contracts are managed. It is, and this is just what I've been told in the last 2 years since stepping in this role. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
So, or at least it has been for us. So, and what I mean by that is everything we have is reimbursable. So whether it's a state funding or the county contract,
Right.
the problem we have with our cash flow is the Treehouse, while it was set up as an independent 501c3, 2017, I think officially, 16, 17, there is no endowment.
Right.
COVID, I'm tired of using COVID as an excuse, but I will tell you, as a background, when COVID hit, the then directors we didn't have any of the PPP forgivable because we weren't
Right.
sure it was going to be forgivable.
Right.
So they ate into what savings we had. So this is our issue. So when I mean cash flow, so with reimbursable, particularly with the county, so with the state funds, for instance, and other grants, they require here are your invoices, and you submit that. With the county, the pendulum kind of has swung where it's documentation on here's your bank account, a detailed bank account, credit card statements that it prove that the money was taken out of the account.
Okay.
And that might, that's normal, I guess. The problem we have is if we don't have it in our account to pay for it, we can't get reimbursed whether it's in there or
Right.
not. So it becomes managing
Yeah.
a cash flow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a catch-22 because
It really is.
you
It's very
can't show them you paid for it if you can't have the cash to pay for it and then get reimbursed.
Exactly. So we get very tight at the end of every quarter. But that's one of the goals. So we have a strategy moving forward. One of the things is not bringing in, but taking an existing person and moving into a director of operations role, more of a day-to-day, which will allow free up my time to focus outside and developing not just some of the grants that we're looking for, but really private foundations, corporate partners, and corporate support, which we have virtually no corporate support from the county. It's a wonderful cause. Everyone believes in what we do, but it's an uncomfortable thing to attach your name to.
Right.
So it becomes difficult. So we do have a plan of action, and I've been working with our board, but yes, cash flow is very difficult the way it's currently structured on.
And then you mentioned the increase in Spanish-speaking clientele, which is, of course, the majority, 80% are Spanish-speaking, and sort of losing the clinician who had the Spanish language capability, but then you have a program manager who does, or a supervisor who does. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have, of our 15 full-time staff, 10 are fully bilingual in Spanish and English. Now, they're not all therapists.
Right.
Which is where the problem with the waiting list is, the ones who either have gone on maternity leave or about to go, or the position. When I say we eliminated it, that person was going off from part-time. She was going to leave anyway, and so instead of replacing that person, we transitioned that. So it's
Okay.
just to be clear. So the issue isn't, I don't think we really rely on outside for Spanish speaking any services, because we also have, in addition to the therapists, we have fully certified support staff that are
Okay.
medical certified bilingual translators. So, but it's really just what we're talking about, the trauma therapists.
Right, because my question was going to be the clinical director, if they were, which they are bilingual, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, no?
No.
Yes?
No, she's
okay.
not. She's not,
She's
sorry.
not, okay.
No.
Then scratch that, and you've answered my questions. Thank you.
All right, so Ms. Yao, what exactly is the decision point before us on this one?
So the question is, does the committee want to explore either a couple things? Council staff understands that in some instances, the county does provide, a limited amount of upfront funding for nonprofits, again, to help with cash flow instances. And I didn't know if the Treehouse would qualify for that kind of treatment, and would HHS have an opinion on that?
Ms. Treadvance, I saw you come down, or Mr. Hodge or Mr. Rendell, any comments on that?
I mean, that's something that certainly can be explored. I don't know, that's definitely something that can be explored. I don't know that that's a council action. Obviously,
Right.
that's a
Right.
contract issue that would go, that would be asked for, and then we would work with our county procurement office and county attorney's office. I think it's involved to approve any of those, or fiscal team. I'm not sure, but.
So it sounds like there's an openness to it and a dialogue and conversation that needs to happen. It sounds like that will
Okay.
happen.
Yeah.
So
Good.
the
Well, thank you.
discussion.
Okay. And the other option, the other thought was, does the committee want to put in funding to support a therapist position, for this year? It gives them some extra time then to, implement their strategic funding plan and, hopefully
How much would a
improve,
therapist position be?
Well, with fringe and
Yeah.
we're probably looking about $100,000. So they have to be fully certified and licensed therapists. Just to give you, if I can just 1 second to give you a little, there's some positive news. So this year we implemented a PSB, it's Problematic Sexual Behavior Program. So when I stepped into the role about 2 years ago, in meeting with all of our partners from CPS, MCPD, and MCPS, the number one thing they all said that we're lacking in the county is a Problematic Sexual Behavior Program. Turns out, as I found out, there was only 3 in the state. One in Prince George's County is no longer, and then there's an individual one down in La Plata, sorry. So we're the only one that does the group therapy. So we found outside funding, and all of are trained in it now, are going through that process. So we launched it in the fall. We have, and that is a group therapy for children and their parents. For this program, and it is a constant rolling program. It's proving very successful, and we want to, in my words, sort of institutionalize it this fall with MCPS. But we have both Spanish and English parents and children running that program. But all of that is with existing staff. So just to let you know, if that averages 5 or 6 hours a week, that's 5 or 6 hours that isn't going toward outpatient potentially clients. So it's, we've added more services that were deemed necessary, and
Gotcha.
so there's some real positive things that we're doing as we're trying to fill the needs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Colleagues in HHS, any thoughts on the staff thought on the additional position? I know that, just if you could just speak at a high level regarding need in this subject matter area. Obviously, Treehouse is an important partner on many different levels, unique in how they work directly with HHS, but just would like to get your professional expertise and thoughts on what Ms. Yao mentioned. And then Ms. Sales, Councilmember Sales has a question or comment. Yes.
I think we're just prepared to support Treehouse, and
Right.
you're the experts, you're the ones who are seeing the children, serving the children directly, and you have a better sense of the need. So we're prepared and more than happy to support wherever the assistance is needed.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. Councilmember Sales.
Can you explain to me what the line item for consultants is being used for?
Yes. So currently, I am considered a consultant, a contractor, and our pediatrician is. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, if I was on payroll, we have to make payroll. That's our number one. I'm going to be open here. That's our number one priority, and then the vendors. So when we are cash tight, the contractors don't get paid. And our physician as well, she's in a position that we don't need the benefits and the fringe aspect of it, so it's actually a money saving aspect for the Treehouse currently. Does that make sense? I mean, we're full time, but and then there's other contractors like our we don't have a full time IT, so we contract for that, and our accounting bookkeeper is considered part time as well.
Oh, okay. If you can just break that down when we go into full council.
Sure, I'll give you a detail.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all.
All right, so what's before us is the possibility of adding one position in Treehouse for 100,000. Yep, so without objection, yep.
I was, would this be ongoing, or I was thinking, one time, but I don't know how the committee feels about that.
I think it'd have to be ongoing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But it will compete with everything else that
I was going to say
we're talking about.
the mechanism
Yeah.
for it, though, would have to be a grant or something on an annual basis, or a
Be
funding
a contract.
with,
Yeah.
right.
It would
So
be added to the
Can I
contract.
I
come
just
back
feel
to
like
you
it's
with
good
an
to
exact amount?
specify that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can I come back with an exact amount? It'll be close, but I
Yeah.
just.
sure. Yeah,
Great,
100,000
thank
was a
you.
nice round number.
It was, wasn't it? I was told there'd be no
Yeah.
math.
So certainly the process, once the budget's approved and if this is in it, we would, just like any other contractor,
Yeah.
we would go back to Treehouse and ask for a budget.
Okay.
So
Right, absolutely.
yeah, so an exact number is fine. Yeah.
Great, just, I've toured the treehouse. It's really important work. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your leadership.
Well, I would say, as I heard last Thursday, I received a call from, we're talking with our Maryland Children's Alliance, which is sort of our state oversees all the 24 CACs, and they said, quote, the Montgomery County is the gold standard of CACs in Maryland.
It's great.
Sometimes you don't see that in the day-to-day, but it was really good to hear. And the support that we received from DHHS and the county's been fantastic. For the first time ever, if you haven't been to our new place, first time ever in the history, we're in our own secure area for the kids. And
Yes.
it's so that our
Mr. Reagan, I'm going to have to cut you off because we need to move on.
Oh, gotcha. Great.
We're running late, but
Well, thank you. I
so
appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate your leadership.
Thank you.
Yep. And we'll get back with the specific number, but in principle, we're supporting the additional position.
Yes.
So
Okay.
let's move on.
The next item is the Maryland Vietnamese Mutual Association. In the executive's original fiscal year 25 operating budget submission, he had recommended the elimination of the program in the Child and Adolescent School and Community-Based Services Program for a reduction of $87,321. The committee was concerned about the impact of this reduction on the clients of MVMA and understood that the organization provided culturally sensitive services to vulnerable residents in the county. The committee requested clarification on the population they're serving, the current needs of the community, and the contract scope of services. On the table on page 14 of your packet shows service numbers provided by MVMA, and MVMA also had requested contract changes that shift from the contracted service that they provide of tutoring services and parent engagement to helping LEP immigrants access benefits and services. The contracts are attached at the very end of the packet. They were actually added online late today. Anyway, so council staff understands that the executive is supportive of restoring the funding to the MVMA as a contract to be administered by the Asian American Health Initiative. So if the committee would like to continue funding for the program, then it should recommend adding that $87,321 to the new and enhanced programs list.
Love this solution, raises all boats. Love it. I support. Yeah. So without objection.
Oh, there was,
Sorry, Councilmember Lukey.
yeah, there was the one comment I was going to make about, because, and thank you, we did ask for some clarification because the contract was from 2010 and it renewed every year, but there wasn't updated language in the contract and so on and so forth. But in terms of parameters or what sorts of things you need back in terms of contract performance, that maybe you do an addendum to the contract moving forward. It would be administered, like I said, through the other health program, but that will help level set everyone about what everyone wants to see delivered and help everybody stay on track. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, duly noted.
Great. All right.
Okay, the next are follow-up items for public, under the public health service area. The first was the question on the strengthening the Maryland Public Health Infrastructure Grant. There was a question about the work of the grant in the prior years, and they listed that here. It funded 2-term positions. I think the dental hygienist, one of the positions is still being recruited. And for the other position, the candidate is expected to start next week. And the grant also supported a number of contractors.
Great. Dr. Ashford, did you want to add anything?
No, other than we are excited for Dr. Davis as special assistant to start May 6th.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I didn't have any other questions. So without objection.
Okay. For licensure and regulatory inspection data, this question came up during the public health work session on the FY24 data compliance. There is a summarized highlight of what the COMAR rules are but on the top of page 16 are the actual data and numbers for the inspections that the LNR has provided, except for the top two, which are food inspections and pool season inspections. The department is at 100%, but for food inspections, they are at 52%, and for pool seasonal inspections, they were at 81% of the mandated inspections.
Oh, okay. That's very helpful. Thank you. That provides some clarification.
Okay, great. The next is the question, there was a question about the Montgomery Cares reimbursement rate. The recommendation from the county executive was 1.8 million. Staff recommended that it be split into 3 tranches, which the committee supported. So the question was, is if they don't get 1.8 million, how will they support and manage the 1 million that is proposed? And so there is a attachment in your packet, and in general, they said this is the minimum needed to maintain the existing safety net, and that a lower rate could result in some staffing cuts, limited capacity, and longer waits or inability to accept new patients. And so I just wanted to provide that information and note that we still have the committee's recommendation as of right now for the 3 tranches.
Thank you for that, and let's make sure that's added to the talking points when we discuss this to the full council. It's an important point.
Will do. And also included the note about the dental collaborative, something that we'll come back to in the fall or the summer. The next item which will need a vote is the motel sheltering. During the April 15th work session, there was one-time funding proposed of $2.5 million to continue overflow sheltering in motels. The committee requested additional information on the historical spending for motel sheltering, which the department provided. On page 17, there is a listing of the, at the time there was use of COVID funds and general funds that were used. So the amounts provided and utilized for overflow sheltering is listed in your packet. So council staff revised their recommendation based on the data that was provided, noting that the recommendation of $2.5 million this year, that is not the total amount which is listed in your packet, which will support the whole program, which is $3.4 million, but recommend that there be that the 2.5 be fully funding. This is a change from our initial recommendation. We initially recommended splitting it and considering $500,000 as a potential reduction. But based on the numbers, the executive's recommendation is a decrease from what was spent in FY24. So we do not recommend any further reductions.
All right. Yep. Without objection, we concur with the amended recommendation from council staff.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Lukey.
Just since I agree, just since Director Hung is here, and thank you all for continuing to work on, better ways to help support folks. One of my questions was at the last discussion we had about this, and trying to, knowing that moteling options are not optimal. Has there been thought or consideration to setting a time parameter in which people are able to then be placed, knowing we may need to start thinking about what else we're doing to work with DGS to say, hey, we need additional space to support folks. We need additional, supportive housing. We need additional places, especially to deal with families with children. So do you have any comments that you can give us as we let that ferment over some time?
Sure, thank you for your question. So because there are so many external factors that have been barriers for families, including the availability of units that can be afforded given the subsidies that are available,
right,
as well as ongoing suspected landlord discrimination, we do not want to impose time limits because we don't want to be in a position where we are putting a family, we're saying you can no longer stay.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't mean
like
an expiration date, because it just, no. But like,
sure,
what is like sort of the optimal time in which you would be seeking programmatically to be able to get people placed in more permanent shelter that's not motels, that's not one of our shelters?
In general, do you mean housing? Just providing housing?
Yes.
That is always the
I know
plan.
that's always the goal. What I'm asking is, optimally, what's the, like, knowing there's no cutoff date, right? But optimally, what might we need to do in order to expedite getting people more placement in more permanent arrangements, whether we need to take on, collaboratives to increase our permanent supportive housing capacity.
Yeah.
Right, and what that looks like. I think if you can sort of say, here's the landscape we're in right now, and knowing that, again, we had other moteling related to COVID, but what I'm looking at most importantly is the overflow motel number, right? And how do we then say, how do we help get them to where they need to be better, and what would it take for us to get them there?
Yeah, I definitely think increasing the amount of housing available and those resources would be a huge help for our families. We do have resources such as permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing, but we need more of it. We also need to build the capacity of our community partners who provide those housing interventions. Some of them, especially the family providers, have struggled to remain financially sustainable.
Right.
So I'm looking at a variety of different solutions for them, including looking at a rate study for our housing initiative program to see if we can adjust the rates by which they're being compensated, because a number of them, most of them have said they've struggled over the past few years. It's devastating when a family partner, which a number of them have said that they can't sustain their operations, and when they pull out, that significantly impacts the capacity to provide permanent supportive housing as well as rapid rehousing. So SEF is looking at how we can assist in that area. But yeah, in general, more resources for those programs. In addition to that, our short-term housing and resolution program, SHARP, which is an innovation providing 12 months, up to 12 months of rental assistance as well as security deposit. With less, it's a light touch case management. That has been very effective with families. So, and those funds have been limited. That's based on what has been available through DHCA, and I would love to see that program continue. So there are a variety of different resources that I would love to see expanded.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing the success of the SHARP program. That's good to hear. And Dr. Bridgers?
And the only thing I'd like to add, Councilmember Lukey, our team, including Ms. Hung this morning, just advised the county executive on those additional practices. The key that I cued in on was working with DGS to look at those buildings that are available to have restorative housing and supportive housing. So I know Ms. Hung has been talking and discussing as a strategy. So I wanted to make that point that we are exploring those opportunities.
And we can expand upon that at a more full committee session when we get an update from SEF formally, but that's a good segue. So next.
I would say that's a good segue to the rest of items 2 and 3 that basically we will be coming back during the fall to discuss motel sheltering and the other parts of the work that SEF does.
Great.
So item H is a follow-up on the guaranteed income pilot. Most of the items here are informational that were requested during the work session. In your packet, you received a screenshots that the department shared of the CLIF program. And the department could detail any information about that. But the rest of the packet, I think, talks about, answers the question about those unemployed, the number of participants that have SDI as their source income, which are none, and the parts of the contract that focus in evaluation are detailed here.
Great. I didn't have any other questions or comments. So that was for informational purposes?
Yes, and that completes the follow-up.
Thanks. You were here for 4 hours for that. Sorry about that. Just saying.
God bless you all.
But you got some entertainment in between. So thank you all so much. This concludes the conversations we've had with HHS. We are going to give it our best shot. I will follow up if there are any talking points, data points, high level, stories that you think will be helpful as we go before our colleagues, before full council, please do not hold back. Share those with us and central staff, and we will make sure they are included in the packet. I will try to make an equally compelling and passionate plea, Mr. Hodge, as you did. It's been 4 hours, I think. That was a Freudian slip. But thank you all so much for your continued leadership. And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks.